Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, you're going to see how to install Plesk on Kamatera and then set up DNS for Plesk. And specifically, you're going to see how to set up the name servers on Plesk. So Kamatera is a cloud provider. They offer different cloud products. If you come here under cloud products, you're going to see different cloud products, cloud servers, block storage, load balancers, and so on. And if you're going to deploy your cloud servers, they have multiple data centers globally. They have more than 20 data centers globally. If you come here, you can learn more about the network, but just know that you can deploy your servers in different regions with Kamatera. The pricing is also flexible. You can get the resources that you need. For example, let's go under Marketplace. This is where you'll find the different Kamatera apps. So if you want to deploy one-click apps, you can come here under Marketplace and see if they have what you're looking for. For example, in this example, we want to install Plesk. So if you come under Web Control Panels, you'll see the different control panels they have, including Plesk. So you can read more about whichever one-click app you want to install with the Kamatera cloud server. Scrolling down, you can use the price calculator. The pricing is very flexible. You pay for the items that you need. If you need more CPU than you need RAM, you can select more CPU and just select a small amount of RAM. The same is true for the NVMe storage. We're going to see how to deploy the server in a moment. And most importantly, you can try Kamatera for free for 30 days. Just get started, create your account, and then within your Kamatera dashboard, you can deploy any apps that you need. You can deploy any servers that you need. So for instance, if you wanted to deploy a server, you can look at its pricing. Just come here, select the CPU type. This is a traditional VPS with a shared CPU. Then there are general purpose CPUs. These are the ones that come with dedicated resources. So dedicated CPU, if you want to run something with dedicated resources, this would be an ideal choice. And that is also true for the dedicated ones. The bustable ones are also dedicated, but if you go beyond a certain percentage of your CPU usage, then there is a different pricing for that. But usually you'll find that when you're getting started, you'll either go with the availability CPUs or the general purpose. So let's say we go with availability and then we select 2 virtual CPUs, and we also want 2 GB RAM, and maybe for Plesk you want to go with 30 GB of NVMe storage. And down here you can see that is a price. So this is just a price calculator to give you an idea of how much you'll be paying monthly for the server you select, for the server you deploy. You can also pay on a monthly basis, or if you just need to test a few items, you can use the hourly billing. And this is one of the few things I've seen here on Kamatera. I haven't seen this on any other cloud provider, where if the server is powered on, that is the amount you pay. That's the amount you pay hourly, not monthly, hourly. And then if you power it off, you can see the pricing for that dramatically reduces. So be aware of that. Other cloud providers, when you power off the server, you pay the same amount as if it was on. So that's something that it's nice to see here. If you want to test a server and then maybe shut it off, you can have it there. So you can use this maybe for a backup server and just shut it off and only turn it on when you need it. Kamatera also has free 24-hour support. So if you need help with your server, you can contact them. So first things first, create your account if you don't have one. Just click there on Get Started. And you'll see you'll get 30 days of free trial. Enter your details, create your account, and then log in. And once your account is created and you confirm it, you'll need to enter your billing information. And then $100 of free credit will be added to your account, and you can use that to test Kamatera for 30 days. That's something you can do before we continue. So create the account and then log into your dashboard. If you already have an account, just click there on login. Log into your account, and then we're going to deploy the Plesk server right away. Okay, so I'm logged into my Kamatera cloud dashboard. If you want to deploy a server, come here under my cloud. You can deploy a server or you can create a new app. So if you want one-click apps, maybe you want to install Plesk, cPanel, any other control panel, WordPress, just click there on a new app and you can choose the app you need. In this case, we're going to install Plesk. So I'm going to click on new app. Kamatera has multiple data centers globally. In my case, I'm going to choose Frankfurt, Germany, and choose your app. The apps are listed alphabetically, so choose the one you need. I need Plesk. I'll click select Plesk, and then you can read some details there. Choose the version. In this case, Plesk will be installed on Ubuntu 24.04, which is the latest as of the date of this recording. And then the types of the servers you can just hover over any CPU and you'll see a brief description of that CPU type. I'll go with availability. They say that Plesk minimum requirement is 1 CPU and 1 GB of RAM. If you're going to run things like WordPress, that is not enough. You need to have at least 2 CPU and 2 GB of RAM. So I'm going to select 2 CPU, 2 GB, and the disk minimum is 20 GB, but I'll go with 30 GB. You can add an SSD disk if you want a second disk. If you want to enable daily backups, which is something I do recommend, especially if this is a production server, enable daily backups. If you want the server to be managed for you by the Kamatera system admins, then you can enable that as well. This is $50 and this one I believe is $4. Of course, you want public internet. We don't need the private network, so I'm just going to leave that unchecked. And then you can add a password for your server. So this is a password you're going to use to log into your server. Paste in your password. Make sure it meets all these requirements. And then confirm the password. If you want the server to be powered on, leave that checked. And then give the server a name. So I'll call this Plesk. I'll just call it Plesk 1. And once you fill in all the above details, you can select your billing cycle. Since this server is for demonstration purposes, I'm going to go with hourly billing. And you're charged hourly. So if you use it for 2 hours, that's all you're going to pay for. And the total price is there. So after that, I'll just confirm that everything is as it should be before we deploy Plesk. Availability, 2 virtual CPUs, 2 GB, 30 GB. All right, everything is as it should be. So I'm just going to create the server. So just be patient and wait for the server to deploy. You can see there. So whenever it gets to 70%, just be a little patient and give it some time until it gets to 100%. So looking at the progress, when it gets to 70%, it's going to take a little bit of time. So if I click on it, you can see where it's taking time. It's taking time where it says that it's configuring the operating system. So Plesk usually takes a long time to install, like 10 minutes. That's what's happening, and that's why the configuration is probably taking a little bit of time, but that is because the Plesk installation process takes about 10 minutes. So give it roughly that 10 to 15 minutes. So for that reason, I will pause momentarily until the full installation is completed. Pause. Okay, so there we go. It's complete. For me, it took about 16 minutes for the entire process to complete. And that is because of Plesk. Plesk takes a long time to install if you run the Plesk installation script. So the next step is to log into your server via SSH, and then you're going to get the instructions for how to access Plesk. So close that, and you can look at your server. If you click on it, you can get details for your server here. If you want to change anything, you want to upgrade your server, you can do so. Just come here and configure. You can replace, you can change the CPU type, you can increase RAM, everything you want to configure for your server, you can do so here. So this is like upgrading the server. We want to go to our server. So under overview, that's where you're going to get your public IP. So I'll get my public IP and I'll use it to log into my server. So this next step, if you're on Windows, download Git and install it, and then open Git bash. Git bash. If you're on Linux or Mac, just open terminal. So I'm going to SSH into my server. SSH. The user is root and my IP. Paste my IP there. Type yes to confirm. And the password that you set for your root user, use that. Copy. Ctrl+Shift+V to paste. All right, there you go. You can see here you have the instructions for how to access Plesk. So I have a temporary domain that has been assigned to me and the user that I can use for getting into Plesk, and that's the password for my root user. That's the same one I'm going to use to access Plesk. So I'm just going to open it, copy, and then Ctrl+V, enter. There you go. Your Plesk is installed. You log in with your root user, root, enter the password and log into Plesk. So there you go. Now you're logged into. Okay, that's wrong. The password. There we go. You're going to copy, enter your password for the user, and then log in. Okay, so the first step, of course, you're going to set up the user. You're going to set up the user for Plesk. So you can give it any name. I can just call it admin Plesk. And then the email, make sure you enter a legitimate email because that is important for automatically issuing Let's Encrypt SSL. And then you can enter a new password. Let me just use the same password. If you'll be sending this link to a new Plesk user, a new admin, just make it so that they can reset the password when they get it. When you give them the link the first time, they sign up as the admin user. So I'm just going to uncheck that. And then as for the license, we are going to do a trial license. Plesk gives a 15-day free trial. So proceed with a full-featured trial license and then confirm and then enter Plesk. All right, there you go. Plesk is now installed and ready to use. If you'll be using Plesk as an individual user, you don't have to switch the interface to the service provider, but just pay attention here. You're going to see some details are going to change here. Some details will be added when you switch to the service provider. So that's the interface I'll go to, switch to service provider. All right, so even before we do anything else, let's just set up the DNS. So to set up your DNS, go to your domain provider. And in my case, I'm going to go to Spaceship. We want to set our DNS such that Plesk is in charge of our DNS stuff. So if somebody adds their domain to your Plesk server, they don't need to do anything. As long as they add the name servers for your server, then the server will automatically set up the DNS and the website will work correctly. So let me use this as my example. I want to use this as my name servers. So I'm going to set up NS1.that, NS2.that. So let me open that. And whichever domain provider you're using, under DNS records, usually probably advanced DNS, go to something called personal name servers. In other domain providers, it's probably something like glue or child or private. So look for something like that. Glue, child, private, or personal name servers. That's what you're looking for. If you don't have any of that, you're going to need to migrate your domain somewhere else. So click personal servers, and we want to add our first personal servers. So I will use NS1, and the reason I'm using NS1 is because if you come back to your Plesk server, here under tools and settings, and here under general settings, if you go to DNS settings, you can see that NS1 and NS2 is part of the records template. So this means that I won't have to change anything in my template. I won't have to change many places in my template if I use NS1 and NS2. If you use something different like NS3 and NS4 or NS19, NS20 or DNS1, DNS2, you're going to have to come here and edit those appropriately, especially for the A records. The expected names for NS1, and then here the IP address for my server. So let me go back to Kamatera, and I will copy my IP, enter my IP, add the first name server, and then add the second name server as NS2. I'll just use the same IP, it's the only one I have, and then I will add. All right, so that's the first part. Our name servers have been set up. The next thing is to change this domain's name servers to point to itself. So I'm going to copy that, and then wherever you usually change your name servers on your domain provider, go there and change the name servers. So I'll use custom name servers, and I will use NS1 dot domain, and then for this one as well, NS2 dot domain, and then save the name server settings, and yes, change the custom DNS. So there you go. We've set up our name servers, but that's not the end of it. Let's copy the domain, go back to Plesk, and let me list the records based on the record type. So here, is there anything I need to change? NS1.domain will point to the IP. That's okay. We don't care about that. The only thing I need to affirm is, let me go to the NS settings and change this to that domain that I've just set up as my name server. I'm going to come there, edit the first name server record. It should point to our domain. NS1.that will be our default domain. And then since I'm doing a demo, I want this to propagate pretty fast. So I'm going to change this to 60. I'm going to make this 60, time to live of 60. And then I will save. And then I will edit the second one, NS2 dot domain, and then I will save. All right, we've set up the two name servers as we should. Now the next and final step is to add our domain name server as a domain on Plesk. So let's come here and you go under domains, and then you'll add a domain, and we can just add a blank website. Enter the domain. I'll just leave that as it is, and I can add the domain. Right, so down here it's telling me your domain has resolution problems. So let's click there on host name and see what could be the issue. So I'm just going to click on it, and it's saying that, but I'm sure if we just give it some time, it's going to work. So let me copy. The most important thing, let's confirm our DNS. Okay, it's using the correct name server for itself. And then again, we want to confirm if this is pointing correctly. All right, so we're going to assume that is correct. Now let's just go to DNS checker. Go to dnschecker.org, and we want to confirm if our records have already propagated. So search. Okay, this one is still not pointing to the server. So let's give it like 10-15 minutes to see how much propagation will have happened by then. I'll also look at MX Toolbox, MX. MX Toolbox DNS check. Paste the domain DNS check. So just give it a bit of time, and then we're going to confirm that it works by actually adding a different domain to the server and installing WordPress on that different domain. If you click on that update DNS settings on the side of your domain registrar, let's click on that, and you're going to see it tells you that change your name servers to that. Okay. So this is something we've already done on the cloud provider. This part we've already done, and we don't need to do it again. Okay, the error code is not being picked up. How about the name server? So while waiting for the DNS to propagate, let me just confirm maybe there's a firewall issue. So let me come here, come back to our Plesk server. So let's go home on Plesk. This is going to give you the advisor, and you can see what the security advisor advises. And You can follow through with most of this, but the only thing I'm interested in is configure the firewall. So let me install the firewall. And just click there, add or remove components. So click on Plesk and we can install the Plesk firewall. Continue. Okay. Go back to advisory and refresh. Activate the firewall. Let's open that. So now the firewall is running. And you can see, apparently, it seems like it was a firewall issue. So everything here is ready to work. Let's go and check the A records. So that's good. This means if you go to this domain now, it should be accessible. Go there to the domain and the domain should now be accessible. So you're seeing that because it doesn't have SSL. And you can proceed to the domain. It's just going to show you the default Plesk page. The moment of truth of confirming this is to add a second domain and just change the name servers to point to your current name servers. That is the moment of truth. Once you've set that up and you see that it's working, then add a second domain. So just to recap, make sure you enable the firewall, and that's going to allow the default UDP ports for DNS, UDP and TCP ports for DNS. Make sure you do that first, enable the firewall, and then continue with the process of setting up your name servers. All right, so let's add a second domain. I'll go back to my domain provider, and here I'll go to domain manager. So let's add a second domain here. I can try with this domain, click on it and click on name servers. So whichever your domain provider is, go there and change the name servers. So right now it's using that. So let me change the domain, custom domain, NS1 dot control V, NS2 dot control V, save name settings, save name servers, and then change to the custom DNS. If I was to go to DNS checker and then paste that and look for my name servers, search. Okay, something is happening. You can see something is happening there. Let's add the domain to Plesk. So click there on domains and let's add domain to Plesk. Add domain. And this time I can add WordPress. Paste. And just know that it's not going to succeed if the DNS have not propagated. A new subscription, it doesn't matter. I will leave that at the default and then add domain. So domain created. And let's just try to install WordPress on it. and we're going to go with HTTPS. So this means that if domain has already propagated, then SSL will be issued successfully. If not, then we're going to have to wait until the domain has propagated. So for now, let's just click on install. There, WordPress has been installed. And if we scroll down, we can see no certificate, but is this domain accessible? So let's open in web and see if our WordPress was installed. And you can see WordPress is accessible, but HTTPS has not been issued. But most importantly, the website is accessible. All you had to change was the DNS records. So if you have customers, that's all they'll need to do. And in your settings, you can make SSL issued along with the domain. In our case, we can issue SSL. So let's click there on no certificates under security and get an SSL certificate. And you can scroll down and install a free Let's Encrypt certificate. So make sure the domain is valid. Without this, your certificate will not be issued successfully. There we go. I can assign it to everything and then get free certificates. Click continue. And now SSL has successfully been issued for your domain. Copy that and open in a brand new tab. You'll see now your website is running via SSL, and the only thing you needed to change was change your name servers to point to the name servers that you set up earlier. So if you have customers, just give these records, tell them to change them wherever their domain provider is. And if you're the domain provider, probably these are your default name servers. So everything will work automatically. You register the domain, this will get added, and then when they go to set up their website, DNS is working automatically. So that is how to set up Plesk on Kamatera and set up the DNS for that. I'm sure once I refresh, this error that was there earlier should go away. All right. You've seen how to set up your server on Kamatera. Servers. And then use the Kamatera Plesk app to install Plesk. So it took me about 15 minutes, and that's understandable because Plesk takes almost that long to install. And then you saw how to set up DNS. Choose a domain that you want to use as your name server. And then on your cloud provider, look for personal, private, glue, name servers, something in that regard. And then add your NS1s and NS2s there with your IP address. And then use the same name servers as your name server. Add them to Plesk, and then add the domain to Plesk. And then every domain that gets added will now be able to resolve on the internet. And that's it for this tutorial. If you have any questions, let me know. If you want to try Kamatera, you can get free 30 days trial. The link will be in the description below. And that's it. See you next time in another video. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comments below.